been going through a lot of closed back headphones. I hate most of them. For a lot of guys out there, it might be hard to get them all in the same place. And when you look at the reviews online, they're generally like, this headphones, that headphones, and you never really know, you never know what they're comparing those headphones to exactly. You never know back to back how those headphones sound like. So you might be used to the M50s, Audio-Technicas, but then for you those are dark and for another person are bright, so you have no idea what they mean when they say that they're too forward or not forward enough. There is this very, very, very vague. So this way might be a more useful way to characterize these headphones. The M50s is just wishful thinking. It's like, oh my god, like what if I really sounded this way? It's like you don't, and plus they'll do this. I cannot believe how badly these are designed. It's like so hurtful. The 1540s of the Shures that I tried like a couple of months back are boring. The highs, you completely lose the highs of the 940s. Like there is none of the magic of the 940s in the 1540s. They have more bass, but sort of like in a Beyerdynamic 1770, which is like not distorted bad like the Beats. But in the sort of like, it's expensive, but it's overblown. And the mids are scooped, so to me, I don't even understand what's the use of those headphones. Today we have back-to-back the Shure 940, the Direct Sounds 29, the Audio-Technica A1000Z, the Beyerdynamic 1770 Pro, the Blue Ella, the planar one with the pre-included, the Audio-Technica M50s. I have a pair of in-ears Shure SE535s, and I have also the standard simple iPhone buds. They break after about 3 to 6 months, and everybody knows that, and then they replace them for you if it is within a year, and otherwise you're on your own. So you got headphones for a year maximum when you buy these, otherwise they break, but they're great sounding. I have tried the Beyerdynamic T1 recently, the Tesla one, and I tried the Audio-Technica M40s and M70s, and I still think the M50s are my favorite. Also, I'm looking at this from the perspective of tracking instruments with it, so they need to be closed back. They also need to sound like somewhat honest to what I'm recording, because I want to be able to make some sort of judgment as I'm recording, and I can't have the headphones be too flattering or too lacking in bass, otherwise I'm gonna compensate for that in my playing, and it's a mess. Also, yes, I toured with the 425, the Shures. I didn't like them, and then I also had the 835s for a while, and I think the 535s are my favorite for sure of them all. I also tried the 215s, and I didn't like those either. I keep going back often to the iPhone buds for reference because paradoxically they seem to translate in many more systems better than other headphones that were, you know, I tried the ODs and I didn't like them much. I tried the Mad Dogs and I wasn't super into it. Maybe partially because they were covered, drenched in like men cologne when they arrived from eBay, and I couldn't really pay attention to the sound. The 940s have they've like this sub bass thing happening around like 30-40 hertz, but there's not a lot much. There's actually not a lot around 100 hertz. They're like this beautiful 8K that is just like shiny on top, but not harsh. I think between 500 hertz and 8 to 10K is like where Shure is normally just like great. The in-ears do that really well as well. They're like open, but they're like creamy and crisp. The bass is sort of like, I don't know what's going on. It's not really exciting. It's not really clean either. If I was to judge things through these headphones, I would overplay low frequencies to compensate. Also, they break, so they're not really an option to keep professionally, I think. Let's try the Beyerdynamics. So much more bass. There's like they're more scooped. There's like the big bass and it goes down. And the 8K high frequencies is like 5 dBs less than the Shure's. But like 12K, 10K, when it gets even higher, it gets really bright and kind of brittle. The low end is really cool. Let's try, for example, the M50s. Wow. Plus 10 dBs in the low mids. It's just like low mids, low mids. The highs are not bad. These headphones feel good whatever you're doing. Like if you're recording with this headset, you feel that like you have the best sound ever. All the time. It's like creamy, it's like warm, it like scoops the highs, and the 2K that would be annoying. So it's really hard to ever think you're sounding like shit with this, which is a big problem because it never ever sounds as good after you track with the M50s. And you're always like, oh man, the mic is wrong. It's really the headphones that told you that you were way better than you were. Let's try the blues. Really alive in the high mids. Really crisp division between the instruments. Quick low end. Fast transients. But like balanced, it just feels a little bit scooped in the highs. Super piercing 4, 5K to 8K. Probably my least favorite in the entire set. There's some comp filtering going on and there's like things missing. But overall, for what it costs, the high frequencies are over exaggerated and the quality of the sound is definitely the lowest. It's sort of cheap, bright, but it's not necessarily lacking bass. And there's something about it that it feels balanced. It's just sort of cheap, quirky, balanced in a weird way. It still sounds like what it would sound from speakers. The bass is really cool though. It doesn't really seem to have much. Not much low mids really. Yeah, lots of 8K. But like exciting. It's very musical. It's punchy, it's musical, it's open. It doesn't really have beef to it, which it's nice for listening to, for me. But it's just this thing where like there's no way to know what the real amount of bass is. It always feels like, oh man, can we turn down the bass? Even if he has like sub lows, which all of a sudden you're hearing the bass like crazy, and you're still hearing some highs. You don't hear much between like 1K and 4K. Like the definition is just sort of like distant. There's like this brittle, bright stuff, and then there's like there's a lot of bass, not a lot of like crispness and punchiness. Great mids, just a snare. It's so nice. Bass is not bad, could be more defined. It's slightly vague. And the highs could be more, so the nice, super nice mids and lows, kind of lacking highs and low mids. This is like a lot of lows and a lot of high highs, but nothing in the middle. It's like so hurtful. It's just all hi-hat. That's all I'm gonna hear is like, there's like, I know there's a bass player because they're not necessarily lucky in bass, but there's all I'm gonna hear is the hi-hat, and to me that's unacceptable. Balance, they're cool, they're good. There's a reason why these are so famous. They're just overcompensating in the low mids, and it's just too much. Again, they feel good, they're good to record with. Also, they do this. Every recording you use these headphones, they kind of end up doing that, and it's a little bit problematic. What about this guy? These are the more balanced tracking headphones, I think, of the bunch. Is the actual ones that feel a little bit more. But then, you try the actual just headphone, but and I think these are the best tracking headphones of the lot. These are $29.99. They're not punchy, they're a little vague. They don't get a sense of immediacy. But you hear everything you're gonna hear, that you need to hear while you're tracking. And it's pretty rare. They're a little harsh, and they're a little vague, and you're not gonna hear sub-low. Like, there's nothing below 80 hertz, you don't really know what's going on. And yet, to my personal ears, these, again, they're $29.99, are the ones I track the most often with, because they're the most accurate. If I make a choice with these headphones as I'm tracking, it normally ends up sounding good in the recording, or the same as I imagine it would. It's not the case with the others. They're a little too scooped in the mids too. If you put them in really well, you're gonna get probably the bass. There's this scooped in the mids that is gonna push you to play more aggressive than you should, because you're not getting anything back. The Shure 940s have the best highs by far, and they will break in 3 to 6 months, and nobody knows why they haven't replaced the headband. And you don't really know what's going on in the lows if you're trying to critically listen to it and track with it. The Sound Isolation 29s, they're just built very cheaply, and they're fine, and they'll do fine, but I don't trust. This thing is falling apart. The fact that the cable is disconnected, you're gonna record, it's gonna fall off. The fact that it's just, I'm not super into it. And they just don't sound very flat in any shape or form. The Audio Technica 1000s are useless, some of the worst headphones I've ever tried, and they're expensive. These are like $400. The Beyerdynamic 1770 have an insane amount of bass. They're comfy, they look amazing, and they have this really harsh highs above 10K, and not much in the mids. They feel a little like, I don't know what's going on. These two are incredibly scooped in the mids. Must be a thing. I mean, clearly is a thing, the Smiley EQ. And then the blue Ellas, the planars, sound amazing. They sound really expensive. They sound beautiful. They're a little scooped in the mid. They're a little soft in the mids. And I'm talking without the amp. With the amp in, it gets boomy, not to my liking. They're also among the least comfortable, realistically. They're like heavy. They're clunky. They're not an experience, and they look a little goofy, if you will. But probably my favorite sounding of the headphones, the M50s, they just tell you that your low mids are incredible, and it's not true. And if you want to take the risk to track with that, that's your thing. I don't think it's worth it. My memory of the M40s and the M70s were there were like a brighter version of that with not good low mids, but it wasn't like it was resolving the problem. They just didn't sound like good headphones. They were harsh and annoying. The Shure 535s, the in-ears, if you put them really well in and you don't move too much, the bass is good. The highs are amazing. The Shure stuff has like the highs done well for my taste. But they're, again, a little scooped in the mids and a little sort of like, I don't know exactly what's going on. And low mids could be better too. Now, the Apple Pods, they don't sound expensive. And they're not really extended. You don't really know much of like above 16K or below 70 hertz. But for the purpose of tracking and for the purpose of will this sound okay in another system, they're an incredibly good reference. I find that if something sounds great on these, it's very hard that it will sound bad anywhere. And the only thing to double check is the extreme lows. You check your sub, your speakers, and you're like, okay, I need to work on that maybe. But I think that out of like some 20-30 headphones I tried, among which some were plus $1,000, like the T1s, Beyerdynamics, the Tesla one, and the Audis. If that's even the way you pronounce it, of course. I think these are the ones that I would choose to track with. These are the ones that are going to give me the most information. I would say the Blue would be number 2. Or the first headphones I try, there was like, okay, these are actually good. They're just a little weak in the mids for my taste. But they're among the more balanced. I can't believe how bad the other Technica 1000s are. How not enjoyable for me. And I really am unhappy and sad that the Beyerdynamic 1770 don't have more detail in the mids, because they would look incredible in the videos. And the Shure 940s are beautiful. They're just the highs, nothing comes close to that. The highs are it. They're the final high frequency of headphones for me. But they're completely unprofessionally built. And the lows are just sort of like, you don't know what's going on, and so you can't work with that. The 1540s of the Shures that I tried like a couple of months back are boring. The highs, you completely lose the highs of the 940s. Like, there is none of the magic of the 940s in the 1540s. They have more bass, but sort of like in a Beyerdynamic 1770, which is like not distorted bad like the Beats, but in the sort of like, it's expensive but it's overblown, and the mids are scooped. So to me, I don't even understand what's the use of those headphones. I would love to try the 1840s, I think they're called 1850s, the open back, but I have no use for open back headphones really. But if you want to spend little and track, I would almost track with the sound isolation. Get warranty and hope that everything goes well. Get a warranty and hope that everything goes well. But for the money, I wouldn't take the M50s, because the M50s, they're gonna... The M50s is just wishful thinking. It's like, oh my God, like, what if I really sounded this way? It's like, you don't, and plus they'll do this. And that to me is not a professional thing to do. This one won. This is great. This is an isolated. This is like a good headphones for tracking, 100%. I think these are kind of great. Of course, they have the terrible cable. You have to have an extension because it's too short and they fall off of your ears, and they look like not great. Wish there was a black version of it, but there isn't. And also at one point maybe Apple will stop making this, since they don't make headphone jacks anymore in their telephones or laptops. So I have to buy 20 pairs of this just in case. I think that's about it. The T1s, the Teslas, just for reference, have incredible highs. I think the Teslas, the T1s, have similar beautiful highs as the 940s. I think the 940s are better, but the Teslas are in that realm. They have absolutely no bass. For anything, for anyone that likes bass in their headphones, I'm sure for some people they're totally fine and beautiful and enjoyable. I couldn't enjoy the Mad Dogs at all. I had like an expensive headphone preamp with them as well, because I thought maybe it was the amp, and it wasn't. It just, they sounded flat and distant and annoying, and couldn't justify the price for that kind of feeling. Of all the headphones I tried, I would say, if you like sort of smooth, recessed mids, I would really give this a try. These are great. They're just a little too soft for me. I know I will overcompensate and play too aggressive. If you want to spend $100 and get super usable tracking headphones, I would definitely look at the Sound Isolation 29s. If you just want highs and you don't care for anything, get the 940s with the warranty. Do not ever buy them used, because you will be screwed maybe within 30 days. And then maybe there's ways to put like metal plates around to fortify them, but they're just like, I cannot believe how badly these are designed. Or if you like living thriftily and you want to check it out, I dare you to try the Apple Pods and not appreciate that if it sounded decent in there, it probably will sound decent most anywhere else. It's very strange, but true. And if you need a stage in-ears that are professional, I still think the Shure SE535s of their series are definitely the best. They're a little scooped in the mids, but probably as you're on stage listening to amps in real time, that will be like the perfect balance, because whatever you don't get in the mids and the low mids, you will get from the actual stage. And you'll get the highs and the details from your in-ears really well, and expensive sounding. And they are unbreakable. I've had them for years and they're just like indestructible. Differently, as I said, from the 940s. The 840s just seemed boring. I just had no interest for it. So, yeah, that's it.